Welcome to the Uncommon Comedy Podcast. I am your host, Brian Apprille. I'm excited to be back here with you guys. This week we got a great guest for you, but just a real quick reminder first that we are available on Apple, on Google, on Spotify. You can watch us on Facebook and YouTube. You can find us on Facebook at Uncommon Comedy, Instagram at Uncommon Comedy Tour, and on YouTube at Uncommon Comedy Podcast. Today's guest is just an absolute joy for me to watch. I love working with him. He performs all over the country. He's been performing forever. Very, very funny. Please welcome the one, the only Mr. Tony Calabrese. Tony.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm holed up in my little bunker here. I've got my booze, my Purell, and my mask, and I'm good to go.
What else do you need?
That's it.
So what I like to say is that I always start off with talking a little bit about your act, and what I love about performing with you and your act is you have that kind of that sarcastic, bitter, but it's not over the top sarcastic and bitter style that I absolutely love. You have this great stage presence and this great personality on stage, and you're not physical, like over the top physical, but your physicality within your facial expressions and when you decide to be physical is so good, and you're such a good comedian to watch, and I just enjoy working with you. So thank you again for coming on today. So
thank you for having me and for all those phenomenal contests. I should have wrote more for you to read, but as long as that part was there, that's good.
Yeah, I got the pages, so I'm good. So let's talk a little bit about you and your career. What inspired you to start stand-up?
Wow, all my life, that's all I've ever wanted to do is make people laugh. But you're young, you get married, you have kids, you need to make money, and I ended up in a whole different path, and didn't really start getting into comedy till I was about, I would say 28 years old, 29. And I was going to the Comedy Store, and at the time we had an improv here in San Diego, and a place called Comedy Isle as well. And I would just go and watch the comics. I'd go to the open mics. I never had the guts to get up until I did one day, and I was awful. But then I still wanted to get back up again, So it was probably just that I don't know. There's like a drive inside you that you just want to do this, and it took one time bombing, and then I went back up and I bombed again. And then I actually stopped for about a year, and then I came back and just started hitting open mics over and over and over again. I took a comedy class at the Comedy Store. I met some great people there. But they're still friends to this day. Of course, 3 have died, but the other ones are fine. That's how long ago it was. Vicky Barbalack and I were in the we started the exact same day of doing stand-up at the Comedy Store, and in a class. The Sandy Shore comedy class, and that's how I met. That's why I met Vicky, and we've been friends ever since. So, yeah,
that's really cool. So, were there any particular comedians that inspired you growing up? Were you like a fan of, George Carlin or somebody that really called to you saying like, "Oh, I want to make people laugh"?
Yeah, Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah,
that's just no question. That was that you always made me laugh. Of course. I grew up with Bill Hicks and Pryor and Carlin as idols, but the one that always used to make me laugh was Rodney Dangerfield and Buddy Hackett. Those two, Rodney Dangerfield, Buddy Hackett. Buddy Hackett, I can watch any of his jokes, any old YouTube clip of him, I still laugh out loud. It's just the two of them were just brilliant at making the audience and connecting the audience and making them laugh. Very funny.
Yeah, Buddy Hackett was the first comic that I was allowed to see once I turned 13. I was watching comedy since I was like 10, and it was all like, very clean cut. And then my brother determined, well, you're 13 now. You can see, and so we went from like, 0 to Buddy Hackett, which was pretty quick. So
I'm older than you. So, the comedy that I watched when you got to see it would be on the Ed Sullivan Show. So, I'd see the hippy-dippy weatherman and watch George Carlin do these old bits. Of course, at that time, he had a suit and a tie.
Right.
He's very clean cut. And there were other guys. Henny Youngman would come on. Jack Benny would come on. So they were the old school comics, a completely different style than what you see today. I think what I used to do, we used to have these huge family parties, and my father used to play in the San Diego Symphony, and we'd have all these musicians over at the house, and they'd play music till like 2 or 3, and then in the morning, and party all night long kind of thing. And I used to get up in front of all these musicians, and I would read poetry with an English accent as a kid. And I was like 7, 8 years old. And they would always they'd drag me out of bed at 2, 3 in the morning and make me come read these stupid poems with an English accent. And that's how I started getting laughs. So I think that's what got me addicted to it.
Yeah, that laughter is truly addictive. So you spoke briefly about your first couple times getting on stage and bombing. Tell us about that first show.
Well, the first open mic or the first show?
The first time you went on stage, yeah, whether that was an open mic.
Well, the first time I went on stage, I had zero idea what I was going to talk about. So I thought you could just get up there and just riff, and people would, they would love to hear what I had to say. And so I was sitting there and I was watching the other comics, and I think I went up at 5 to midnight, and the only person left in the audience was the person that was coming up after me. And, it was that kind of thing. It was awful. It was just awful. And, and there's, any comedian will know there's a feeling when you first start out and you come off the stage and none of the other comedians look at you. Right? There's that. It's like, they kind of like, all right, yeah, we don't want to talk to them about it, Or the flip side is if there is a crowd there and you bomb, hey man, you did, that was, you really got up there, they don't, it's that fake compliment, but they don't really compliment you. They just say, oh, hey, yeah, you were up there. Yeah, you were there.
Yeah, that's very brave of you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you look like you had a presence, you had some stage presence, you were on the stage, so you were present, it was that kind of a thing.
Did you have fun? That's what I do when I don't want to say to someone that they bombed or whatever.
Yeah. Did you have
fun?
Did you have fun? No, I didn't have any fun. Not the first time. But it's addictive. I mean, it's just, it's probably the most addictive drug out there is getting up on that stage.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. For those who haven't experienced it, it's once you get that, you're hooked and that's it. So how long did it take for things to kind of click for you?
I would say about 5 to 6 years. It was, I don't want to say anything negative about that comedy class, but it didn't teach you how to be a comedian. You can't teach somebody how to be a comic. You can't teach people how to be funny. You can teach structure. And so I learned structure in that class, but I was coming out as a one-line, one-joke comic. And it wasn't me. It was just I was writing jokes one at a time. And it wasn't very real. And then I got off the stage one night. It was a Sunday night, and at the time, some people might remember Fred Burns was the manager of the Comedy Store in La Jolla. And Ron, the assistant manager, came over to me and said, "Fred wants to see you in the office." And I'm like, "Oh God, I'm going to be banned from the Comedy Store for being so bad." And I went in the office, and Fred had a bottle of 1800 on the desk, and a styrofoam cup. And he had a box of baseballs and in dirt, and he was scuffing the balls up with dirt, and then he was autographing them Yogi Berra, which was absolutely hilarious. And then he didn't say anything, and I hey Fred, and he goes, Tone, I know funny. You're funny. Not now. It's like, not now? No, not now. You're not funny now. You're not being real. You're not being yourself. You're trying to be something else. And I was like devastated. Like, what do I do now? And so I threw out literally everything that I had created up to that point and just started from scratch. And I started with where did I want to go up in a bit, and almost created the ending first. And I did it based on everything that was true or reality, and then built up to a funny ending. And I started doing it like that, and then I was getting together with a bunch of other comics, and we started writing, and I saw what other guys were doing and picked up some tips from other people. And I just kept getting up there until I figured out who I was, and then what style I wanted to have, and what felt comfortable to me, and that's what I did. You can't beat getting up on stage over and over and over again. You just have to get up on stage.
Right.
It's repetition, 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 repetition. You see what works, what doesn't work, but you also have to feel it. It's not just what comes out of your mouth. You got to feel what you're saying. There has to be some emotion behind it.
Right.
So it's what your angst, your frustration is, what your anger is, whatever it is, whatever the emotion is, has to come out in the jokes that you're telling. And now it's more of a story format than the one-liners. But every single comedian out there's got to set up punchline and a tag and everything. It's just how you do it, how you tell it, and you just got to create from your point of view.
Right. Your persona, and that all just evolves. Now, just for how long have you been performing?
It's 1991, October of 91. So however long that is.
Don't make me do, no math right now. We're not
almost 30 years, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So yeah, I mean, it takes, like you said, just that repetition, getting over and over and over again. And then you said you were talking to other comics, picking up some tips and tricks. What was the best piece of advice that you got about comedy?
That the audience doesn't give a F about you. They don't care about your opinion. They don't know you. They have no knowledge of who you are as a beginning comic. They do not care about you until you make them laugh. And I thought that was the most important thing I've ever heard, because nobody cares if you're going to get up there and just do rants and preach to an audience, they don't know you, they don't care, they're not connected. So until you can get some laughter, that's what people are there for, is to laugh. Until you get them laughing, they don't really care. They got a 2-drink minimum. They're sitting there. They want laughter. That's the only reason they're there. So your personal opinions don't matter. Make me laugh, dance monkey dance, kind of thing. So I think that's the most important thing I ever learned, was the audience doesn't care about you until you make them laugh. That's pretty important.
Yeah, it's the first time I think I've heard anyone say that, but that's totally true. It totally makes sense. That's a great piece of advice for people listening. So you were talking about, you were originally more like a one-liner, Rodney Dangerfield sort of type of comic, and then it became more story based, but you still have your setup punch tags. That's what.
Right.
Can you explain a little bit about your writing process now?
Yeah, for me, I start with, if something, let's say you observe everything that's going on around you. You have your own personal things that happen to you. Something funny happens, I'll make a note of it, and then I build around it. And what led up to it? What was I feeling at the time? And I might and then I'll just talk. I'll just talk out loud about something, and I try and think of as many things I can think about. Whatever I was, what my ultimate goal is to get to. If I want to talk about, hey, I saw a cow, I'll write everything I can think of about cows. And then I'll start talking out loud about it, record it, play it back, listen to myself, and see what I pull out of it. And maybe 5% I can keep for something. So, you create this volume of information, and then you just keep editing. So you think you can try it out on stage, and you try it out on stage. And then you have to tweak it a little bit. I wouldn't say never, but it usually doesn't work the first time. You've got to add something, take something away, change the arrangement of a line. And at the same time, what am I feeling when I'm saying it?
Do you, because I'm kind of that way as well. That's sort of my process. Is more of a rant or an auditory version of it, saying it out loud. Because it kind of makes it so it's in the style of your voice, and you start to naturally edit it the more you say it, like telling a story. Right. Did you ever do anything as far as like sitting down and writing? And
of course, yes, absolutely. I've literally sat down at 2 a.m. and just started writing, and the next thing I know, it's 5 hours later, and I've got page after page after page after page, and then I'm like, oh God, I got to go through this. So what I'll do after that is pull out what I think might be funny to me, and then I'll say it out loud and try and add to it. Is this going to be my premise? Is this my punchline? What's my topic? Does this sound funny when I say this? It's got to sound funny. Comedy is in how we say and what we say out loud. People have to hear it. So the way we deliver a line, not only does it have to be funny from a structure standpoint, and is it something, either nonsensical or shocking or whatever you want to call it, but does it sound funny? If I say it a certain way with my eyes being like, like this, or, my eyebrows, whatever I do with my face, because I do have this, rubbery face, it's like, I'm a tad overweight. So
I'm so jealous of your rubbery face, by the way.
Yeah, I use it. I use my, I can do this kind of, I use the eyes, I use the face, I use my facial expressions. So it's not just what I'm saying, but is it funny the way I say it? That's what you have to not only write, but you got to say it out loud. And you've got to be able to, record it, play it back. And then what facial expressions can I use with it that conveys what I'm feeling when I'm saying it? I don't move a lot on stage because, well, I don't like to move. And so, I'm not one of those guys that's walking back and pacing on the stage. I like to get centered. And I might have a few movements with my body to accentuate something. But for the most part, I'm a guy that just stands there and delivers the material and uses my facial expressions and any kind of body language. I have my hands, whatever, to convey the message. It's not, I'm not going to get these guys that pace back and forth across the stage. That's their thing. I can't. It drives me nuts when
Yeah, I always find it distracting when they do that.
For me, it's very distracting. Because when you're on the left side of the stage, you're ignoring the other side of the audience. There's an audience over there that's now seeing your back.
Right.
And so that's really, really, it's one of the things that just drives me nuts.
Yeah, I always have that same problem because I just feel like it to me, it's just it seems like it's a nerve thing, like it's a nervous energy thing.
It's a nervous energy. I think there's a very funny lady in San Diego who I love to death, but she comes out, she plants herself on the right side of the stage. She doesn't move for her whole act. So everybody on that side of the stage feels like they're left out.
Right.
So she's not pacing, but she's not centered. And then I've got a couple of people that I know that never stop moving. And it's got to be a nervous habit. If you're facing the audience and doing something with your body while you're doing it, like that fan moves all over the place. He's got such high energy. He's bouncing up and down. He's everywhere. There's a lot of comics that they're doing something physically as they're moving, but just pacing back and forth drives me nuts.
Yeah, well, and also I think another thing that always drives me nuts too is when someone just comes out and plays center,
Mm-hmm.
they ignore
the sides.
And it's like I understand, like if you're doing TV or something that you want to play the center or whatever, but even still, you want to make sure that they're engaged and then deliver your punchline center. That's the other thing. Don't deliver your punchline this way. Make sure it's as big and wide as possible to center. But
well, you have to look out, and let's face it, in our business, a lot of times you can't see the audience.
Right.
There are times when you're performing to pitch black, and so you've got to look before you go on stage. Where is the audience? You can't. I've seen people go up there and perform, and there's no one there, and they're looking at nothing, and the people got up and left. And, it happens. So you got to kind of take a look at what's going on the stage, and you got to be able to look all the way around and try and, even if you can't see anything, you've got to be able to try and connect.
Do you prefer seeing people or not seeing people as far as the audience? Obviously,
I'd rather see, at least the first few rows. I like to get, I like to see what's, if I want to see their faces. I want to see what their reactions are. Sometimes people, they're laughing out loud. You can hear it, but you can't see what's going on.
Right.
And also, and this is just something that happened to me one time, and that's I did a show. This was years ago when we had comedy up at the Hilton in Del Mar, right across from the railroad tracks, and the racetrack right there. And the room was so pitch black, you could not see the end of the stage. You couldn't see your feet. It was that bad. And you had this just like a spotlight so bright in your eyes, you couldn't see anything. Well, I walked off the end of the stage, which was funny, when you think about it. And I crashed into the tables down in front. So it was kind of funny because I reached back and I grabbed the curtain. And for a brief moment, I kind of like hung in space, like maybe this will support me and I can swing back kind of thing. But no, it didn't support me. And I don't like those pitch black stages like that. But that was probably, of course I jumped up. I'm okay, but I was not okay.
Yeah.
You got to play with it. So
yeah, you're gonna just roll with it. That makes for a bad show. Which kind of leads me into my next question, my favorite question. What is the worst show you've ever performed?
Oh man, there's been so many. That probably the worst show I ever did. We were doing a benefit show for a place that had burnt down, and it was an animal shelter, and it was up in North County, and it was me and 3 other comics, and it was in a big theater, and probably about 350, I think, is what it sat, and they had a big like movie screen, and they were showing like what the future was going to be as they rebuilt this place on the screen, like their vision was. And then before they brought us, they showed the fire and the tragedy of the place burning down, and centermost was the carcasses of dead animals smoldering on screen, on this huge screen, right? So we're like, oh my God, like this is, what are we gonna do? But that wasn't the topper. And then they brought on stage, I don't know if I can say what the political correct term is, a little person, okay, in a wheelchair, okay, who had a month to live and was dying of cancer. And she was let out by a dog that pulled the wheelchair.
Oh no.
The dog had been rescued from the fire. And then she wanted to tell how she was dying and had a month. And we're just like, and I'm not kidding you, she left the stage and the guy that was the MC said, and now let's hear some comedy. Oh my God, people were weeping. I mean, the audience was crying and they were literally in tears. And now we're supposed to make them laugh. And I was just so thankful that I was not the opening comic on that show, because it was Paul Stecklin, and I'll never forget Paul getting up there. He was good. I mean, he played with it. He had fun with them and got going. And but it was still awful. I mean, what do you say when you're, I mean, there's been a lot of weird shows like that, but especially when you're doing benefit shows, they always tend to be the weird ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't understand.
No, either the sound doesn't work, or the lighting doesn't work, or they put somebody up in front of you. We did one for I can't remember the name of the foundation, but they said, we have a comedian. He's a paraplegic. We'd like to bring him up first before you guys go on. He's only going to do about 10 minutes worth of material. He'll open the show and that'll get everybody connected because they know exactly, who this guy is. They're all going to love it. Well, he was like Stephen Hawking's, where you had to do that, and he blew into a straw kind of thing. Okay. Well, it took him almost an hour to do 10 minutes worth of material, which I felt for the guy. But now we got to go on after that, and we're supposed to give him a 90-minute show, 2.5 hours. It was just brutal, And you're like, what are you gonna do,
Right.
And I mean, that's horrible for me to say anything about it like that. But at the time, if you're the comic going on stage after that, and somebody's been up there literally an hour, and the guy that's organizing is like, well, he's got, and we're like, yeah, we get it. Do you still want us to do our time? I'll tell you one of the funniest shows. It's just so politically incorrect, but I don't even know if I can tell you this one. It's not dirty. It's just way politically incorrect. We
Right.
did a show. We did a show. Can you edit this out, or is this going to be on the whole? Is this going to be there?
We can edit it if it's not appropriate or whatever. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to tell you the story, and then you can do whatever you want with it. So,
Okay.
we did a show. We used to have a group called Comedy Incorporated that was 4 comics. We did clean shows, and it's because it was corporate. We knew we wanted to make money, and the only way to do it was to work clean. So we did a show at the convention center for a group. It was a Doctors and Nurses Association. There were upwards of 2,000 people in the audience. They had set the convention center up almost in the round. It was like in a U-shaped audience, the way they were set up, and with people on the sides towards the back of us. And they started the show with, like, it wasn't just comedy. There was a magician, there was a juggler, and then there was this little boy that came out and sang show tunes. And we're standing there, and one of the comics turns to me as the little boy is singing Annie, and he says, do you think he knows he's gay yet? Okay. Now, I'm not politically incorrect. Well, we laughed because we're comics, but the mother of the boy was standing right behind us.
No.
Yeah. So she went and ratted on us for this, and we can't have these horrible people on the show. And we'd already been paid. They'd paid us ahead of time. And they came back to us and said that because originally we were supposed to do 90 minutes, they cut it to an hour and then 30 minutes. And then they were giving us 10 minutes. They kept cutting the times as this story kept spreading. And at the end, it was one comic went out there and did 10, was not me. One comic went out there and did 10 minutes to silence. It was like all of a sudden the entire audience knew what was said about that little boy.
Wow.
And now the little boy is on the Olympic diving team, so he's done great. It was bad. At the time, it was totally inappropriate. It was not cool, but it was funny.
Right. Well, I think that also shows that just you have to be aware of a good thing of advice for comics is know who's around you. Like, watch what you say. Like, because even if it's you see somebody in the audience and you're like, oh, this dude's terrible. Oh, that's my husband. Like there's so many stories like that. You just have to be, smart about what you're doing. It's not, you didn't say it. It's just, and again, comics have a very twisted sense of humor. And if it's funny, we laugh. That's
exactly. Plus, there's a tension before you go on stage. You may not be nervous, but there's a tension. And so, we do a lot of stuff to break each other up before you go on stage. Like, don't suck, that kind of a thing. Don't blow this, your life depends on it. And then when they come off the stage, you'll say, hey, did you go up yet? That kind of a thing. Just to give somebody a hard time. And so you're trying to keep the mood light. You don't want people and corporate shows especially, because you don't want to say anything that's going to tick anybody off. And usually you've been vetted, and they want to make sure that you're not going to. They want a transcript of your material and all that kind of stuff. So it was just in the moment, and he said it. We all 4 of us were laughing. I mean, because it went on. It wasn't like he just sang one tune. I mean, he just kept singing. It was one after another, and it wasn't the most masculine singing. That's all I'm going to say. And so, granted, he was maybe 9 or 10, but it was not. It was bad. We cashed the check right away.
That's fine.
Next day, we didn't mess around.
Yeah, always get the check before you go on stage.
But we obviously they did not rebook us, and I have no idea how many gigs we lost because of that, but it happened.
Right. Yeah. Well, especially in the corporate world, like that is your reputation is everything, and something like that happens, you're toast.
That's one of the problems with social media is that it's there forever, and if you say something inappropriate, I wasn't always a clean comic when I started out. I didn't care. I wasn't a dirty comic, but I would drop an F-bomb or whatever. It just as part of a joke. I mean, I used to joke. I used to do a joke about my kids when they were really little, watching the San Diego Chargers, and basically one of them yells out, "He dropped the effing ball," and that was the punchline of this joke. Well, I'm saying the word that a 5-year-old said. I can't do that on a corporate gig. I don't even do that in a regular show anymore. So, because you're trying to get booked to want to make money, so, clean is green. So that's, until you're a big name comic, if you want to make money in this business, the clean route, if you've got 15 to 30 minutes of clean material, you can make up a couple $100. I tell comics all the time, give me 15 minutes clean. And you can open. You can open for me. It's simple.
Right.
You can make
that's something. I'm sorry. I was going to say that's something you and I talk about. We've talked about this a lot, actually, is your social media presence. Because if you do a corporate show, which you do tons of corporate shows, I do corporate work as well, and they're going to pay you $5,000, $10,000. They're going to research you. So. Scrub your social media, like be smart about it. Like I remember you have a story about losing a gig because of something you said, and it wasn't even off-putting, and it was just, times change. A joke that I had years ago about my hair, my hair was racist, and it was basically a balding joke, but it was like reversed, does not fly now.
Right.
And so it's like you have to be aware of that, and you have to be aware of what you put out there on social media, and what you have on YouTube and all that sort of stuff.
Well, years ago, first of all, we didn't have a cancel culture, and we didn't have the political correctness we have today.
Right.
I don't know any comedians that purposely were trying to hurt anyone with their material. We were just trying to get laughs, but it was a different era. So it was taken differently. The gig you're referring to with me was for a Catholic group in Nashville, Tennessee, and I had done a joke. I don't remember. It was at the very beginning of the gay marriage issue, and I wasn't making fun of gay people getting married. I was basically, the joke was making fun of people who. Like, I don't care marry who you want was basically the doesn't matter to me. Well, that group, that corporate group, the Catholic group, took that as I was now in support of gay marriage. So, and it was found on a video on YouTube from like 2011 or 8 or whatever the heck it was. They had seen a bit that was out there, and it cost me $5,000. And they can't book me because of my views on gay marriage. Well, I'm not going to talk about that on stage. It has nothing to do with it. And my material isn't like that. It was something at the time that many years ago. Just like we used to joke about Muslim. It was, you would joke about. I did a joke about 2 Jews walked into a bar. How come there's no Muslim terrorists? Because every joke starts out 2 Jews walked into a bar. So I blew myself up. It was an old joke. Well. 20 years ago, the joke was funny. It's not funny. You can't do that kind of material now. So, we have to keep changing with the times. And you have to pick and choose your material that is not offensive if you want to make money. If you just want to be a club comic, get up there and, say whatever you want and nobody cares. But at least for my age, I have to find a certain niche to perform to. I've chosen to work corporate and to do, the over 55 crowd, these retirement communities where they're, they're very plush. You've done some of them. They got the golf course and then, $1 million condos, and they have a huge auditorium. They fill it up, they pay you, and, hey, we're not talking about a 90-year-olds at a rest home where you got to play Santa Claus for an hour. This is they're used to Buddy Hackett. They're used to that kind of comedy. That's their age. So they want that style, but you still have to do it to where you're not going to offend anybody. You got to stay away from politics. You got to stay away from religion. It's common sense stuff. I don't do any political material anymore. And I used to start out with, for a long time, whatever was in the news that week.
Right.
And you try and be topical. Well, you can't do that. I mean,
No, you can't.
not if you want to get booked in any kind of, you just can't do it. You're just not, they don't want to hear about politics.
Right. Well, and it's not even so much that, it's maybe the audience, but it's the person who booked you. Like a lot of comics don't realize that's who you're taking care of, because, you do the wrong thing, they get fired.
Oh yeah. Well, and you've probably done this. I know this happens to me probably 75% of the time. I've got to send a transcript of what I'm going to be talking about. Mm-hmm. HR has to approve it and legal has to approve it, right? Before you can get up there and do anything, because they don't want lawsuits. They don't want any issues, because they can't risk any of their employees getting offended.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy, but like you said, if you want to work and make some money, those are the rules.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's always interesting. So just to kind of reset, we're talking with Tony Calabrese, very, very funny comedian. If you want to check out more about Tony, you can visit his website at TonyCalabrese.com. That's CALABRESE.com. Tony Calabrese. So Tony, what's the, I like this one too. What's the weirdest place you ever performed at? What's the weirdest location, like show wise?
Boy, when I saw that question, I'm like, oh my God, there's
so many.
There's weird. I've done stand up from the bed of a pickup truck. I've done. I'll tell you, one of the weirdest places was a corporate gig in Rancho Santa Fe at a home, and it was Dustin Nickerson and I, just the two of us. And Dustin said, hey, it's going to be a great gig. These people got a lot of money. They'll probably pay us more than we even asked for. It's going to be, don't worry. We're only going to give them an hour. We'll go in there. We'll kill it. And it'll be great. So this home we get there. It's the White House. Okay. It's the mansion. Right? We go in the back because we're going to do comedy outside. And there's an Olympic swimming pool, and we're on one end, and the audience is on the other end of the Olympics. So yeah, and we had one of these Bose speaker system things, and I looked at Dustin and I said, "Well, this is going to be one of those times because they're not going to hear us or pay attention. No one's going to care. It's just going to be one of those weird things." I went up first, and I did half an hour. I just performed as if the audience was right in front of me, and I was kind of they were eating shrimp cocktails in the back. They weren't even, it was ridiculous. You could hear a laughter every once in a while. I finish and bring Dustin up, and then just as he goes up, this little kid comes out from behind him with a brown box, a paper box, like cardboard, and 2 kitchen utensils. And the entire time Dustin's there, he's beating on these things like he's playing the drum. It was one of the funniest and most bizarre things I've ever seen in my life, because he just kept going. Nobody was paying attention. The kid, nobody knows. We didn't know who this kid was, where he came from. Nobody came to get him. He was like 5 or 6 years old, and he was just looking at him, banging on these things. He was the Ringo Starr of the day. I mean, you didn't want him, but there he was. It was bizarre, and then afterwards we didn't even get paid what we thought we were going to get paid. It was horrible.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And
Dustin, and there's not much you can do at that sort of point.
Yeah, it's just I've done stuff like in parking lots. I've done stuff. I did one show in the living room for 10 people. It was a dinner party, and they wanted a comic. And I kept saying, "Well, do you have sound? Do you have, what do we?" Well, there's no sound. It's just you. You just get up there, and it's for a lot of money. But you just sit there going, "Okay, this is a crowd work room at this point. You got to,
Yeah.
I mean, it's 10 people. You can't just sit there and tell jokes for an hour. You know?
Right.
So you had to do, you know, and I don't like doing that, but you know, but I did it, and but it was weird. That was a weird place. It was very dark, and I thought they were going to kill me and dismember me. It was that kind of bizarre place. You know?
Yeah, those are always such strange shows. Man. People think it's a good idea to have it at their house, and it's not. It's not. Unless you have a theater in your house with lights and sound and good seating.
I did a 40th birthday party where it was in the backyard. This is just a couple of years ago, and I only had to do half an hour, and he was going to pay me $400 for half an hour for his wife's 40th birthday party. And we got a sound system, we got lighting, we got everything. Cool. So I get there, it's in the backyard. There was a Jump for Joy, one of those bouncy house things for kids, filled with little kids behind me, jumping up and down. The microphone was little like Mr. Microphone things, right?
Yep.
And the lights were they look like Chinese lanterns.
Okay.
Hung across this trellis kind of thing. And I had to stand in front of it. And while I was performing to the wife, this little kid came up and grabbed my leg and held onto it for the last 10 minutes. And then he pooped and peed at the same time. And I was like, oh, why is this? You know, the things we do. But I got paid an extra $200 for that. So
nice.
We added it to that because of what I'd gone through. But we've all done them. We do, you know, we're basically prostitutes. We'll do whatever it takes. I mean,
right.
We've all got those shows. I mean, I could go through 100 different crazy shows.
It's funny. Patrice O'Neill had this great quote about it. He'd be like, you know, we've done so many horrible things for money that even prostitutes are like, you guys should have some standards. You know, like.
That's true. Because we'll do it. We'll do it as long as I can't remember saying no to it.
It doesn't even register in your mind to be like, no, I'm not going to do this.
Well, part of it is you want the money.
Right.
And the other part is I can do this.
Yeah.
You know, it can't be that bad.
Right.
You know?
I can make it.
It's only an hour. It's only half an hour. It's only whatever it is. It's only, you know, how bad can it be? You know.
Right.
And then
you
really
get there and you see it.
It's just, why do we do this? You know?
Yeah. Because first you go, okay, how much is it? That's like the first question. You know, how much is it? What's it pay? Okay. And then you find out the details and you're like, all right, I can make that work. And you get there and you just see it's a train wreck and you're like, I can pull it off. I can pull it off.
Yeah, I can pull it off. You know it's a hell game. You do it anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And then you just like halfway through, you're like, all right, well, we'll just practice now. We'll just, that's what we'll do.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You're there. Yeah.
I love it's all about staying professional, you know, even in that case. It's so important to stay professional.
Because you don't know what you're going to get out of it. You know, I can't tell you how many hell gigs I've done where afterwards somebody, oh, you were so good.
Yeah.
You know, I've got something coming up at and the next thing you know, you're doing a benefit or a corporate show because this person worked at some company and now you're making $1,000.
Right.
So you got to do them. It's just you don't know what's going to come of them. Now there are some that you know they how much do you charge? And you give them, oh well, you won't do it just because you love to perform. No, you got to pay me.
Exactly.
You got to pay me.
Exactly. Like we did that airport show together, and that was one of those where I totally just broke because I was just like, this is. I've never, you know, I'm always like, I always pride myself in being professional, but it was just so nobody was paying attention except for I think Lisa. I think you and Mark and a few other people were just talking at that point because you know we were
busting. We were making fun. We were laughing more, making fun of whoever was on stage at the time.
Exactly. Because
of the pain they were going through.
Exactly. Yeah. That was a rare show where usually with like a hell gig, it's happening. You don't realize it's happening until you're on stage. But that was like you knew well before you went on stage that this was going to be awful. So the dread and the pain was all before you went on stage. And then when you get on stage, you're kind of like, well, all right, I kind of, like there was that freedom.
Was
like
really,
I took out my phone.
What was
I took out my phone and recorded. I was like, okay, you want to know what it's like? And nobody cared. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared.
You have little kids come up and sit down while you were performing.
Yes.
And they were eating pizza or something like that. And then while you were up there, a woman came over and said, you need to stop this. They're complaining upstairs about the noise. And no one was watching, but the upper level where the shops were complaining there was noise downstairs. It was like, oh, I don't know why
there was plenty of noise, but it wasn't just the comics. It was an airport.
No, it was, we were in the airport, and not a good venue for that.
No, definitely not. So let's shift gears a little bit. You, like I do, you love comedy and you like to help and you like to teach about comedy. What kind of got you into helping comics and kind of teaching comics and getting them, giving them a plan?
It was 9 years ago. I'd done a 24-hour actors thing where you get all together, you're in a room, you're locked up, and you got to write a play, perform, direct, all this. You never get to leave. It's a 24-hour actors experiment, or whatever it's called. One of the guys there had seen me perform. He said, "Hey, we've got this theater here. You think you could put together a comedy class at this theater?" And I'm like, well, who's going to go to, well, the other actors that are here, they're a lot of them are interested in stand-up comedy. And I thought, yeah, I can do it for you. And that was it. I started that, and then I've been doing it ever since. And it grew from there. And I did it. I've done it solid now for the last 7 years. And between the National Comedy Theater and the Point Loma Actors Studio. So, and it's just started. Somebody asked me to do it, and I thought, sure, why not? You cannot make somebody funny. They're either funny or they're not. But you can coach them, and you can teach them structure. You can give them, the basics. I think you can help them edit their work. You can point out some things that you think they could do differently. You can help them with their stage presence, but if you're not funny, you're not funny. It's nobody's going to make you funny.
Right.
It's impossible.
I mean, I think one of the benefits is it can help cut the time off your learning curve.
Yes.
If you have a good instructor, they can definitely help you with, hey, here's a process and here's, what you can kind of think of. But
you still got to get up on stage.
Right.
I don't care how many classes you take. If you're not getting on open mics and getting in front of people, and don't get me wrong, open mics are a cesspool. I mean, they're awful, but you got to do it. You got to you have to make your bones. You got to get up there and get on stage as much as you can, because granted, you're probably performing 90% of the time to other comedians. You're going to be going up late at night. There's very, very rarely is there anybody actually in the audience. It's an audience. And it's not about so much seeing if this particular material is going to work, because there's really no one there to see or get a reaction from, but how you deliver it, how you feel delivering that material. Do you feel that it's funny when you're doing it? If you get comics to laugh for some other reason than bombing, then you're doing pretty well without shocking them. A lot of people try to shock other comics into getting laughs, but if you got material that works and it's funny, you can even get other comics to laugh, and then you know for sure that you've got something that works. But
I see so many people that will just sit and try to make the other comics laugh because they're desperate to hear that laughter.
Yeah,
and
it doesn't mean anything. Open mics are a tool. It's a training tool. That's what it's for.
Right.
I used to go to open mics to try and find comics to open or something, and I just finally gave up because it's the same dick jokes over and over and over and over again.
Right.
It's nothing. there's very few times that you see somebody original and fresh and who isn't trying to appeal to the lowest denominator in the room. You know,
Right.
How dirty can I get to shock another comic?
Right.
And I have nothing against people working dirty at all. If that's what you want to do it. I don't care. That's not what I want to do, because I only do this to make money. You know,
Right.
it's, you know, I do it for a living. So, you know, I enjoy it. I love getting on stage, but I know that that is not the path to making money quickly.
Right. And if you're at open mics trying to make the open micers laugh, you're just going to keep playing open mics.
And that's why, you know, typically you'll see the same comics year in and year out. They last 2 or 3 years and they vanish.
Right.
And then you see the same, and it's just a, you know, it's just a treadmill of, you know, these guys running through, doing the same things, and then they go away. You know, I've seen it for years. I saw it here. I saw it in Los Angeles. It's not new. There's, you know, it used to be different. And I think maybe, I don't think we have the mentors we used to have that would hang out at the clubs like they used to have. When I was coming up, there was, you know, you could hang around and there were other comics that were actually doing it and making money. And, you know, it was a different time. Plus, you didn't get passed to get onto best of shows unless you were good. You know, you didn't get that next step unless you were passed, and somebody had to look at you and pass you. And this guy's funny, this gal's funny, whatever. It doesn't exist anymore. So, for the most part, and I think that's one of the problems too. Is you don't have that level of person that looks at somebody and says, "Okay, this guy's good. Fix this. We'll try on a Wednesday. We'll try on a Thursday." You know, that's pretty much over with. You know, down here. So
yeah, well, I mean, that's how it was where I started too. It was, you know, the open mics were booked, and the booker would sit in the audience and watch you and give you notes and say, you know, this is what they, and they would basically groom you for that club. Right. Say, okay, this is what you want to do. This is what we want, and so if you're willing to work with this, we'll work with you. And you know, and it was a great roadmap. And now, like you said, nobody's really. Not a lot of places are doing that. I won't say nobody, but there's not a lot of places doing that.
Right.
And the other problem is a lot of comics don't want to hear it because they're delusional in their head, and you can't tell me about, you know, free speech and this and that, and you know, my jokes about this are amazing, and you know, and it's all that sort of nonsense. But I guess it kind of leads into this. So, what is the biggest mistake you see a lot of newer comics make now?
Trying to be something that they're not. Trying to imitate another comic, but that's not really them. You know, they'll see a Netflix special of somebody and think, "Oh, that's me. I can do that." Then they try and be that comic rather than just being themselves. And I see way too many comedians trying to pretend that they're, you know, the next, you know, whatever hit sensation they want to be. I mean, they copy too many people. I'm not talking about material, but the style of material and their style copies other comics rather than them just trying to be themselves. And I think that's, you know, we used to say it takes 10 years to, you know, find your voice. I don't believe that. I don't think it takes 10 years. But you have to be able to realize what your true voice is. And that's, it's, you know, it could take you 2 years. It could take you 10 years. But you've got to get up on stage enough to figure it out. And, you know, however many, you know, if you're only getting up on stage once a year, well, it's going to take a lot longer than 10 years to find your voice.
Right.
You know, if you're getting up 4 or 5 times a week, it may not take more than a couple. It may take a year. I mean, I've only known one natural comedian in 30 years I've been doing this. I've only seen one person get up on stage who was funny and knew who they were from the moment they got on stage. And you could just tell that this person had something special. And that once in 30 years. So I've seen funny people. I've seen a lot of funny people. And people you've never heard of that were extremely funny. But a pure natural talent from the get-go, you got to find yourself.
So would that be the biggest piece of advice you have for comics? Just find themselves, or what's some of the best advice you can give with your almost 30 years of experience now?
Be original to where the material, what you're doing is about you. Okay. Don't try and do what other people are doing. Do what you want to do. And it can be the same topic that somebody else is talking about, but if it's original to you, just do you. Don't, I can't talk about being overweight because so-and-so talks about being overweight. Okay. Talk about you being overweight and how you deal with it and how you talk about it. And why is it unique to you?
Right.
If that's what you want to talk about, whatever you pick, whatever your topics are, and whatever situation you put those topics in based on reality, make sure it's something that is true to you. It's got to be your truth. Comedy's in the truth. It's in taking the truth and then twisting it, but it's there. The truth is there.
That's great advice.
Trying to make something up and then making something funny that you made up. It's got to be based on truth, something, somewhere that you can call on, so that it's yours. It's original to you. I see way too many copycat comics, and I'm not talking about people that are hacking other people's material. They're just copycats in style and everything else. That's like it drives me nuts when people say, "Oh, you remind me of Rodney Dangerfield." I am not Rodney Dangerfield in any way, shape, or form. But I may have some stylistic tendencies that remind people of Rodney. Well, I'm older, I'm going bald, I got a big forehead, I got facial expressions. But if you listen to my material, it's not Rodney Dangerfield by any stretch of imagination. So, and I'm not trying to be Rodney Dangerfield. I'm just being myself. So, that you can't try and be somebody else and make it work. It won't. People can read right through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're starting to wind down a little bit. One of the things that you're doing too, which is pretty cool, you were telling me about this. You have an animated sketch comedy show, KIWTV.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's Keeping It Weird TV. It started out as a radio show years ago. It was on 103.7 and then one other station. I joined them on the radio show. I was there for about 5 years. And we just did old sketched, like the old radio shows, sketch comedy shows. We wrote our own shows and we do that on the radio. Well, Rick Jean, who created Keeping It Weird, is now bringing the sketches back, but we're animating the sketches and updating the sketches. So Keeping It Weird never went away. It was an online radio show after it left the radio station. And it's on Keeping It Weird, KIWTV. You can see it on any Roku device. You can look up, if you have Roku, you can look up KIWTV. And we're putting the sketch comedy. I'm learning animation. Rick's learning animation, which I'm having a blast doing because I suck at it right now. And that's what makes it so funny is when you're so bad at it, it actually looks better because you can make fun of how bad it is. But I'm having fun because, there's no live comedy anymore right now. So we have very few things that an opportunities to perform. So I thought, well, I'll do this. And Rick said, yeah. So we both have been working on animation. It's a lot of fun. And so we've got a few pictures up on YouTube and on the TV channel. And you can find KIWTV on Roku and then Keeping It Weird on YouTube. And you'll see our little cartoon comedy sketches on there. So.
And that's youtube.com/KIWTV.
Yeah, correct. I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. youtube.com/KIWTV for Keeping It Weird TV. So I always like asking this one, and then we'll get talking about the San Diego Food Bank in a second. But do you have any funny audience stories, like something that's either happened to while you were on stage or where something happened while you were in the room and someone else was on stage?
Boy, that's another thing where I've seen a lot of stuff. I think I've seen audiences I've seen people charge the stage. I've seen one of the comedians put someone in the audience in a headlock and wrestle them to the ground. I've been on stage and had bottles thrown at me for a joke. For a joke someone didn't like, and they missed, thank God. And I think probably one of the most bizarre things that I saw was at the Comedy Store, and there were two German women in the audience, and they were sitting about the second to third row, dead center, and they were in these real spangly kind of dresses. I don't know what you call that material, but it almost like looked like scales, but it was real shiny, little tiny scales. I don't know what you call that, but and they were bombed, they were hammered, and they had no underwear on, and they kept showing the comics that were on stage that they had no underwear while you were performing, and the comics are coming up. You're not going to believe who these girls are, And one of the comics got up there and ruined it for the rest of us, where he called the girls out and made the mistake of bringing them up on stage. And they proceeded to how much they love America and it's so good to them. And, everybody here is so friendly, and completely lost. People were rolling because these girls were hammered, and I can't even remember all the crap they were saying. But in the end, he was trying to get them to pull up their skirts to show the entire audience that they didn't have anything on underneath. It was just surreal. And then the girls ended up getting in a fight, and one of the comics tried to get one of the bouncer door guys tried to get the girls off the stage, and it was weird. It was just one of those weird shows and weird audience things. Never give up the microphone, ever to an audience member. Just don't do it. And I don't care.
Another great piece of advice.
And I don't care if they're not wearing underwear. I don't care how hot they are. Don't give them the microphone. And that was nuts. But they were German. So, they were talking like this the whole time about how much they love America. That kind of a thing.
That's so crazy. Well, let's talk a little bit about the San Diego Food Bank. That's the organization you wanted to spotlight today. Tell us a little bit about why you chose that.
Well, during this crisis, this COVID crisis, there's a lot of people in San Diego that are unemployed. Food costs have gone up. San Diego Food Bank does a phenomenal job of providing meals and food for people. They can drive up there. You go by, you pick it up. They don't ask. There are not a lot of questions. They're not going to give you a hard time about anything. They help keep families fed. I don't know how many thousands they're feeding every day. I know the guy that runs it, Jim Floros. He used to run the Burn Institute. Now he's running the San Diego Food Bank. He's done a great job with that organization. And I wanted to pick something that I know is. Plus, I like food, and that's the other reason. Yeah. But in times like this, I've seen so many of my friends that are unemployed, anybody in the entertainment business that, we're all hurting right now because there's just no money to be made. And places like the San Diego Food Bank that are not asking questions, that are helping you, get by with groceries. We all know how expensive that is. And they're helping everybody. They don't care what your politics are. They don't care anything other than they're there to help people in San Diego get something to eat, get some nutrition. And it's just a great organization, and they do it. It's the volunteers there, the people that work there. They're great people.
Yeah, and that's a great, like I said, it's a great cause. And for people who maybe aren't living in San Diego, who are watching this, listening to this, check out your local food bank.
Absolutely.
Because they can use the help too, and just help your community. But yeah, the San Diego Food Bank has been amazing. They've partnered with some of the people that I've done some benefit shows for to help feed the hungry and the homeless, and so they're an amazing partner to work with. And like I said, just if you're not in San Diego, if you're in Texas, I'm sure there's food banks there. There, wherever you are, there's food banks that are trying to help people, especially during this time. But so one more time, Tony Calabrese, I want to thank you for coming on. If you want to check out Tony, you can find him at TonyCalabrese.com. That's CALABRESE. It's TonyCalabrese.com. And if you like what we're doing here, make sure you subscribe, follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, or not on Twitter, Facebook at Uncommon Comedy, on Instagram at Uncommon Comedy Tour, and on YouTube at Uncommon Comedy Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And Tony, thank you again for coming in and spending some time with us today.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate it. Take care of yourself, my friend.
All right, you too.